Welcome to Little Roo Homestead. So before I get into it, I just want to point out I'm not sponsored by any of these companies who make these products. This is just what I use and have access to. And second, I am not a veterinarian or a medical professional. I am just a typical owner. I'm an experienced owner as well of poultry and other animals. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the topics for today. So with injuries and illnesses, you should treat them with the utmost seriousness and patience, because it does take time for some of this to heal and for the bird to recover whatever that is ailing them. So keep that in mind. Just be patient, take your time, make sure the bird is doing well, whatever may be causing the issues for your bird. Now there are two ways you can handle this. You can contact a veterinarian, or you can do it yourself or DIY. Just depending on how you want to do it, it is your choice, it's your decision for your flock, okay? Alright, so now let's say we'll start with the first big thing. So first thing with chickens and other species of poultry is that they have a pecking order, or a wolf pack mentality. So you have your dominant birds, your alphas, then you have your middle to upper ranking, which would be betas, and then you have your omegas, which is everybody else, and then you have your low ranking bottom birds. Depending on where they at will depend on how the pecking order works. With the pecking order though, if there's a bird that's weak or it's just a little bit different from everybody else, they're going to pick on that bird particularly, and they could possibly kill that bird if not injure it. So just keep an eye out for that. That's very important. As a chicken owner, or poultry owner for that matter, you need to keep an eye on what's going on in your flock when it comes to behavior. So, now with that pecking order, that's where whether you're a beginning poultry owner or an experienced flock owner, the biggest thing you're going to want to learn first is their normal behavior to the odd behavior, what's not normal. You can't do that if you're not observing your birds. You need to sit out there, spend time with them. Whether you're having a glass of tea, or a beer, or coffee, whatever it may be, when you sit and watch your birds, this is the time to observe, to learn about them. What's normal and what's not. Once you can distinguish what's normal and what's not, it's going to be very helpful in the future when it's time to identify things that could be wrong with your bird. So that's that first big bit there that you got to remember. Now, third, there are some illnesses out there that can be dangerous or devastating to your flock. So you want to be responsible where you purchase or who you buy from. If you can do research on those people or those businesses or hatcheries, please do. Do your research, get some ideas on who and what you're buying. If possible. I know sometimes it's not possible for some smaller local folks, but try to see if you can call and talk to them or make an appointment with them and see if they will sit and talk with you about what they do in their farm and everything, okay? Alright, so now once you've identified normal behavior and you've gotten your birds, you've studied them, you've spent time with them, but you notice one's acting odd or just not right. It wasn't acting like that this morning, or was acting like that yesterday. So now that that's been identified, you've noticed it, something's going on, it's time for you to go collect the bird. You need to isolate it or quarantine it so that you can look it over, and if there's something wrong, it is already separated from your flock, because if it is an illness, it will spread. It can be contagious and it will spread to the other birds. So you want to isolate them in a quiet, safe place so that they can recover in a timely manner that is good for them and good for you, and that you can keep an eye on them just in case something does happen with them. The best way to show you how to do this, I'm going to get a bird and I'll be right back. Okay, so this is our volunteer for today. This is Mr. Atlas. He is a millefleur duckle bantam. This is the rooster, his name. He's such a sweetie, he's very sweet. So Now that you've collected the bird, here's what you need to do. You need to look them over, whether it's a chicken or a turkey or a guinea, whatever it may be, is how you're going to check them over. Now, is there any abnormal swellings that doesn't feel normal or doesn't feel right? I'm not feeling anything. There's nothing wrong with him. He's just for a little visual aid for us. Right? He's such a good boy. Is there any bleeding, any skin wounds, any scratches or punctures on the chicken anywhere? Good boy. Is there any red, irritated skin that's exposed? Are there missing feathers, broken feathers? Their energy level, are they normal? Are they a little slow, a little sleepy, maybe lazy? Or you notice any odd fluids, like anything from their nostrils, their eyes, their ears, or even their vent, their bum? Are any of their limbs out of norm, just weird, like a broken leg or just funky toes? The wing doesn't look right, it's being held weird, it's not its normal position. Yeah. Such a good boy. So, now that you've looked the bird over, have you identified anything wrong with the bird? Now, say you did. Alright, now, what do you need to use for it? I'm going to go put Mr. Atlas back first. He's such a good boy. You want to say bye? No? Okay. Alright, now that you've identified the bird that has an issue, and you've identified the issue, whether it's an injury or illness, what you need to have on hand in your little poultry first aid kit, you do not have to have all these items, mind you. This is just what I have on hand that I keep in our chick shack here. This is the building that I will bring the birds to isolate. In the off season, I don't usually have anything in the building, so that leaves it open for birds that are injured or ill. If not, they will go up to our front porch, or somehow, some way, we will find them somewhere to stay during the time they need to recover from their injury or illness. Now, part of your first aid kit should be some self-adhesive bandages. So it's like a special wrap that I have here. So this bandage here, it sticks to itself rather than sticking to the skin or the feathers of the bird. It's really good for leg injuries or open, if you have a big area that needs to be covered up. This is what you want to put on top of the gauze. Now you do want gauze, and you don't want sticky ones. You want non-stick. That way, that way it doesn't stick to the wound. Because if you try to pull it, it could rip skin. Just like with us, you don't want it getting attached to the wound. That's not fun. Definitely not fun for the bird. So, and then when you're dealing with any illnesses or injuries, you should wear rubber gloves of some kind that are disposable. That way, that just keeps you of infecting any of the wounds if it's an injury, or if it's an illness, you don't get it all over you and just get messy. Then you're going to want some medicine and antibiotics. If you use antibiotics, if you use a natural medicine, that's fine. That works great. Just depending on the ailment, depends on what you're going to have to use. I do have antibiotics. I keep them on hand if I need to treat something aggressively, especially if it's internal injuries. This is something I'm going to want to use for those internal injuries. This is amoxicillin, just for reference. And then there's some other medications you can keep on hand, like dewormers. I have 2 types of dewormers. They're all natural, so there's no egg withdrawal. This one's empty because it's one of my favorites. I am not sponsored by them, but I do like to use it. It's Vermex. It works for intestinal hygiene. And then, of course, I also use Backyard Chicken Zyfend A. These are a liquid form. There is some powdered forms and some other options out there, just depending on what's available to you. So just keep that in mind with that. Then the next thing you're going to want to keep is some type of petroleum jelly or bag balm, something for skin wounds or irritations. We use it for puncture wounds or gouges too, because a lot of times you're not going to want to cover the injury because it could get infected if you keep it covered. You want it to heal from the inside out. so that it heals correctly. Next, you're going to want, here's some tools you're going to want to keep in there for the birds. So you're going to want a pair of scissors. Never hurts to have some syringes, especially ones with needles. You can get them dirt cheap at a local feed store. Not Q-tips. Q-tips you do need. There they are, tweezers. You're going to want tweezers. Never hurts to have some extra things. I have a pair of, and then I keep some pre-mixed sprays in some plastic bottles. This is a special mixture for external parasites, usually like lice and mites and things like that. Then we use veteran spray. You can get that at Tractor Supply or any local feed store. They do have the poultry one, and then they have another species for like cats and dogs and other pets. This one's really good too. And then you can also keep some extra spray bottles to make some other mixtures, especially for cleaning or disinfecting and things like that. We also keep all this stuff on hand for these emergencies. And like I said before, that we had mentioned earlier, when you identify that bird, to isolate them, you gotta have somewhere to put them once you've isolated them. And I do recommend you let them be able to get outside for a little bit once they're well enough to be able to go outside and do a little bit of chicken or poultry things, scratching, sunbathing, dust bathing. Just make sure they're able to get outside to enjoy some good old sunlight and fresh air. Now, depending on what's ailing that bird will depend on your course of action. So whether you take them to the veterinarian to get checked out and they give you instructions to take home with medication and things like that, or if you're doing it yourself and you have done what you needed to and now you're just waiting for them to recover, it could take a few days, could take a couple weeks, could even take a month, just depending on that particular ailment. Now, after whether you've done what you needed to, there are times you may have to go a little farther than you normally would. Sometimes you do have to use needles, and I've had to splint legs already myself with birds, and that's okay. It's gonna happen. The more birds that you get, the possibility and the probability of injuries and illnesses happening kind of goes up a little bit, but it's not substantially. So it's not going to be like instantaneous or anything like that. So there's questions that I get from people, especially young poultry owners, or even just people who've never had birds before. They ask a few questions, and I do my best to answer them. And the big thing is the worming, because that has to do with the illness and injuries. If the bird, you can worm them, that is a thing, you can worm them just like other animals. You just want to, you want to be careful that when you're worming them, that the parasites don't develop an immunity to what you're using. That's why I don't use just one dewormer, I use multiples, and I don't use them consistently all year long. I try to change it up, so that, because some wormers work better on certain types of parasites, and then the alternates work on the others, depending on what time of year it is, the situation for the birds, and things like that, and their environment, and so on and so forth. All that's very important and part of taking care of the bird, just like with other animals. Like I was showing you earlier, we had the Vermex, which I like, in the backyard, Zyfen A. What's really good is with these is they are liquids, so you put them in their waters. Just make sure they have only access to this particular mixture of water, so that it does its full effectiveness on those parasites, and that they get the doses they're supposed to get for the time period for these medications. So that's something to keep in mind when you're deworming birds. Now, you can deworm them however you like. You may want to consult a veterinarian to see what works for you, for your environment, your area, and things like that. Now, do I get injured birds? Yes, I do. Not all the time. Sometimes it's something very minor, sometimes it's something a little more serious, but most of the time it's something minor, like they cut their leg, or they get bit by something like an ant or something that gets a little swollen, or they get bumblefoot, where they get an infection in their foot. It can be simple to fix, just depending on how early you catch it and how the severity of it for that particular bird. Larger birds tend to be more susceptible to those things, to bumblefoot. That's just how it works out, at least for me. I still love doing this, no matter, illnesses come up, injuries happen. It's just whether or not I'm ready and I'm prepared to take care of it. And that's why you want to have that first aid kit. You want the medicines and stuff on hand, so if something comes up, you ain't gonna run to the store or have to drive all over town or have to order it online. It won't be here till next week, kind of thing. You avoid some of those situations when you're dealing with these birds who need to be treated sooner rather than later. But not all of it's bad. There are some really cool moments. I really do enjoy it. So don't forget to have fun. Enjoy being with your birds. Enjoy poultry. Just enjoy having the birds in your yard, in your life. Just seeing them, whether you have them for food or to produce food, they can be so much entertainment. I could sit out here and watch them all day, just doing what they do. Just them enjoying their life, eating bugs, digging up grass, dust bathing, sleeping, taking a nap, having a crowing contest with the other roosters. It's really fun and entertaining. So it's gonna happen. Some bad things do happen. Life does throw curveballs at you, but that's okay. Just be ready, be prepared, have that first aid kit, have your mental checklist ready. So anytime you observe any abnormal behavior, you're ready to take it on. You're ready to prepare for those injuries. You got all the stuff you need, and you can handle it, and it's gonna be all right. Okay? Don't get too emotionally involved. Try to stay a little logical, stay a little more focused, because that bird doesn't understand what's really going on when they're injured. All they know is they want to survive. So give them some love, give them some patience. Just let their body recover, and they'll be back to normal, hopefully very soon, and they can go back to being with their normal selves again in their flock. So that's it for today, and I hope it was very helpful. We'll see you again soon.